Yo, what is good, YouTube, and welcome back to another JC2K video. In today's video, we are doing episode number 33 of I Build Your Teams, the series where I build my viewers' teams into the best teams possible for my team unlimited and or competitive play based on how much MT they have, what their current squad is looking like, and things like that. We are lucky enough to be joined by a special guest today, my boy Evan Tanaka. What's going on, Evan? Appreciate you coming on.
How you doing, my man JC? I'm just glad I can come on and give you guys my best suggestions for your guys' squads, and hopefully me and JC can give you guys the best suggestions to help improve your guys' team.
Yes, sir. I'm going to leave a link to Evan's YouTube channel and his Twitch down in the description below, so y'all make sure y'all go drop him a sub, drop him a follow on Twitch, all those things. We're also going to be doing a video like this over on Evan's channel. We actually tried to record it earlier this week, but the audio was messed up, so that should be coming in the next few days as well on his channel, so be on the lookout for a tweet from him about that as well as that video on his channel. But yeah, without further ado, let's hop right into it. Start off with this first team, which comes in from my boy Hero. He's got 1,000,000 MT, doesn't really know what to do with his team. He's on current gen. So I'm gonna be honest, when you look at a team like this is a very, very good team. You may not have the best player in the game at every single position. Like, you don't have Yao Ming, you don't have Kareem, you don't have, for example, maybe a backup point guard if you were to run MJ at the 2, that type of thing, but you have a very, very good team. I do think you could potentially make one upgrade that I do see as a potential pretty good upgrade for you. As much as I like D-Rob, and I do think he's a great card still, with the 1,000,000 MT and the fact that we did get Yao Ming today, I think upgrading to a guy like Kareem, who's 7'2" with a massive player model, in my opinion, the second best center behind Kareem in the game, and I think he gives you the defensive versatility, athleticism, and size to guard Yao. I would upgrade to him, start him at center, and bring KP off the bench. That would be my first upgrade, and then I would sell D-Rob. My second upgrade would probably be targeting a backup point guard just so that you can put MJ into your starting lineup with Ben Simmons, because I think putting MJ at the 2 gives you the best 1-2 punch with Ben and MJ in the game. Then you move Mullen to the backup 2, and you add a backup point guard, whether that's Zach LaVine or you want to go a cheaper option like Dwayne Wade, Cade Cunningham, somebody like that. That's what I personally would look to do with this squad. Besides that, I like John Isaac, Danny Ferry, Blake Griffin, and Jermaine a lot. That's just what I think. What do you think, Evan?
I think honestly the same thing. I do like the Michael Jordan and Chris Mullin suggestion, where have MJ as the starting 2 and then have Chris Mullin as the backup 2 and then get rid of Billy Owens. For the backup point guard, I would suggest a guy like Zach LaVine. I do think he's really good on current gen, and honestly, he's really not that expensive, maybe around 200,000 MT, so you can definitely afford him at the backup point guard. For the center position, Kristaps and D-Rob I do think are usable and obviously really good. Kristaps is a top 2, top 3 center in the game, and I do think D-Rob is still probably top 5. If you want to take JC's suggestion, you can definitely go ahead and get Kareem. But I would say just keep D-Rob and Kristaps unless you really want to make that Kareem upgrade, because me personally, I still like D-Rob. My last suggestion would be for the backup small forward position. I do think Danny Ferry is decent, but I think there's a lot better small forwards that have came out pretty recently. Number one guy I'm thinking of is going to be Thon Maker. Obviously, you have 1,000,000 MT. You can go get a Kevin Durant if you really want to. You can go get a Zion Williamson. But I think a good budget option would be a guy like Thon Maker. But those are my suggestions for your squad.
I like it. Second squad, what are you thinking, Evan?
Next team here comes in from Simon on Twitter, and he says he's an extra 3 Hall of Fame KD on the market, so he'll actually have 1.2 million MT. Looking at squad here, he's got Josh Giddey, Vince Carter, Glenn Rice, Josh Smith, and Ralph Sampson. He's got a pretty decent bench as well, but a lot of positions I think we can upgrade. The first one I'm going to look at here is going to be the backup small forward position. Not really the biggest fan of a guy like Glenn Robinson. I think a cheaper option like Jonathan Isaac, he's going to give you better defense and just as a better small forward overall. So for me, what I would do is put Glenn Rice to the backup 2, get rid of Ray Allen, have Jonathan Isaac at the starting small forward position, and then for the backup small forward position, I would go ahead and pick up a Thon Maker. You do have 1.2 million MT, just like I suggested for the last guy. You can get a Kevin Durant, a Zion, a Paul George, a Giannis, if you really want to. But if you want to save some MT, I would do starting small forward Jonathan Isaac, backup shooting guard Glenn Rice, and then for the backup small forward, I would go with Thon Maker. Power forwards, Josh Smith I think is decent, but 2 guys that recently just came out that I think are really good at power forward is going to be Jack Sigma and Jermaine O'Neal. I think they're 2 really cheap power forwards that are really good value cards as well. Jack Sigma only around 30,000 MT, and I think Jermaine O'Neal is around 40 to 45,000 MT. And then for centers, it just really depends how much MT you want to spend. If you want to go more budget options, I would go D-Rob and Hakeem. If you want to spend a little bit more MT, I'd probably go D-Rob and Kareem, or maybe KP and Kareem. But other than that, I like your point guards in Josh Giddey and Derrick Rose. I think Vince Carter is a solid shooting guard as well.
All right, I agree with a lot of what Evan said, and the thing that I will say I would 100% agree with is the the power forward position. Jermaine O'Neal and Jack Sigma combined going to cost you around 75,000 MT. They are 2 top 5 power forwards in the game, can compete against literally any power forward that's in my team right now. They are going to hold it down for you at a very high level and not going to run you a lot of MT at all. For me personally, I am not the biggest fan of Derrick Rose or Glenn Rice on current gen. I would probably sell both of those cards, and depending on what you wanted to spend at the backup PG, I think you could go Zach LaVine and start him and bring Josh Giddey off the bench, or you can go a cheaper option like a Dwayne Wade or Cade Cunningham, both of whom I personally prefer over D Rose on current gen. Vince Carter, I definitely like at the 2, but I would still move him to the backup 2, and like I said, I would sell Glenn Rice because I just don't think he's that great. When you can get a guy like Julius Erving, who's just a better Glenn Rice, I mean, not a better Glenn Rice, they do different things, but he's a better overall card than Glenn Rice, and they're going to be a similar price point. I think you get Dr. J, start him at the 2, and bring Vince off the bench at the 2. At that point, I think you have to get 2 threes, and at the 3 small forward position, one of the guys I 100% would go with, no doubt at all, would be Jonathan Isaac. Absolutely elite defender, knockdown shooter, great size. The other small forward position is kind of up to you. You can go a Kevin Durant, a Zion Williamson, a Larry Bird, if you want to go one of the more expensive options, or you can go one of the cheaper options and get yourself a guy like Thon Maker, who we've mentioned a couple times, but is a very, very good budget option as well. Like I said with your power forward position, Jermaine and Jack, really just put them in and let it go. Like, those dudes are going to hold it down. And then at the center position, I'd go one high-end option and one somewhat closer to budget option. The budget option I would go with is D-Rob. Still going to be a little bit expensive, but power within D-Rob is less than 100K now. Still a top 5 or top 6 center. And then at the starting center, I would go Kareem or KP, depending on how much MT, or I guess who you prefer between those two guys. But that is how I personally would go about fixing up your squad. Next squad today comes in from Can't Guard Him. He's got 2.6 mil on current gen. He's got a really nice squad already assembled. Cade and Manu, which is a solid point guard duo. Vince and Scotty, definitely don't dislike that either. Jonathan Isaac, Jeremy Grant, Bob Thon, Dikembe Mutombo, and Ralph Sampson. This is another really well put together team. You already have Bob as well. You have a lot of MT. Definitely gives you the flexibility to make changes if you want to. For me personally, I would be looking to make some changes, especially at the point guard position, and then maybe a little bit to this backup bench area as well. PG with 2.6 mil. I'm going to be honest, I think you bite the bullet and go get yourself a Michael Jordan. He's the best card in the game on current gen, an absolutely dominant point guard option. I think you just go get him. He's going to be worth the nearly $1 million MT that you might have to spend, but he is so incredibly good, and I think he's worth the price. Other than that, I think you can go more budget options. I think you move Cade to the bench. Cade is going to be fine. Then you start MJ. You move Vince to the bench, and you pick up Dr. J, just like I recommended for this last team, and sell Scottie Pippen. Jonathan Isaac is great. For me personally, I'd probably move Thon Maker to the backup 3 to replace Jeremy Grant and get one of Jermaine O'Neal or Jack Sigma, depending on who you prefer, at the backup power forward. And then I would go get a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or a Kristaps Porzingis to start at center and bring Dikembe off the bench. So those are the upgrades I'd be looking to make for this team specifically.
Honestly, I literally agree with what JC said. Like, I'm trying to be creative. I was trying to think of, like, what else can I say, but honestly, I think he got it spot on. MJ, point guard number 1, Cade, point guard number 2. Dr. J is a really good, I guess you could say, budget option for the shooting guard position. Him and Vince can definitely hold it down. I like Jonathan Isaac. I like Thon Maker. I like Bob Nedelecki. And then I like a guy like Jermaine O'Neal or a guy like Jack Sigma. 2 really good budget power forwards. And then center, run Dikembe off the bench. And then, like JC said, get a Kareem or get a Kristaps Porzingis. So really no other suggestions for Can't Guard Rob.
Can't guard him. Can't guard Rob is in the 2K league. Nice.
Yeah,
all right. Next squad. Let's get it, Evan.
Next team here is going to be from NBA Communications. Lineups look mid, but can get the job done, I guess. 3 Hunt with Chauncey looking to upgrade bench, obviously. So looking at squad, he says he wants to upgrade the bench, and I definitely would agree. I see Bill Walton on the team. Yeah, that really just can't happen in April or May almost now. So I'd say your starting lineup's actually pretty good. I like the 2 dynamic duos. I like the Hakeem. I like the Ralph Sampson. You didn't really specify how much MT you have. I'm gonna just go off the top right and say 950k. So I like Hakeem, I like Ralph Sampson. I kind of like the duo as well of Chauncey Billups and Ben Wallace. What I'd recommend do though is probably have those two guys off the bench, get rid of Trae Young, get rid of Jerry Sloan, and then have Chauncey and Ben off the bench. You didn't say if you're on current gen or next gen. Kind of hard to tell. I'm gonna say you're on next gen.
Current gen. Because these are the card arts for current gen. This is the way the lettering is on current.
Okay, so it's current gen. Okay, so if you're on current gen for your point guard and shooting guard position, I would go probably Zach LaVine. If you want to go budget option, you can go with Cade. But I do think Zach LaVine is really good on current gen, or D-Wade. So pick one of the three: Cade Cunningham, Dwayne Wade, or Zach LaVine. And then for the shooting guard position, I'm gonna say Dr. J. I know we've been suggesting him a lot. But for his price range, he is one of the best value cards in the game. Small forward position, I like James Worthy, but I'm gonna have him coming off the bench. Budget option, get a guy like Jonathan Isaac, get a guy like Thon Maker. For the power forward, I like Hakeem and Ralph Sampson. I think that can be your starting power forward and your starting center. For the bench though, I would get Jack Sigma, or I would get a guy like Jermaine O'Neal for the backup power forward position. And then for the backup center, I think D-Rob or Hakeem would be the center I would go with.
All right. I like a lot of what you said. What I would say is I think you take this starting lineup that you have. You just move the whole thing to your bench. This is now your bench, in my opinion. I like the Chauncey and Ben duo. It makes Chauncey a lot better, makes Ben a much better shooter as well, and he gives you an absolute elite defender, which helps make up for the fact that Chauncey is a bit small. James Worthy is great. Hakeem and Ralph are both very solid and definitely made better by that duo. So I think you keep this starting lineup, but you just make them your bench. For me, I just go with a brand new 5, and I agree with what he said at the 1, you go Zach LaVine. At the 2, you go Dr. J. At the 3, you go Jonathan Isaac. I agree with all 3 of those picks. At the 4, again, I know we keep repeating ourselves with guys like Jonathan Isaac, Julius Erving, Jermaine O'Neal, Jack Sigma, guys like that, but there's a reason we keep repeating ourselves. Those guys can compete with literally any card in the game at those positions, and they cost 60, 30, 40, 80,000 MT max, like depending on the card, but they're all incredible value cards for how good they are and what they can do for you at their respective positions. So I think you go Zach LaVine, Dr. J, Jonathan Isaac, and then Jermaine or Jack. And then at the center position, you go David Robinson, or if you want to splurge a little bit, again, you can go Kareem or Kristaps. I know our recommendations aren't exactly the most diverse for these teams, but that's because those cards that were recommended are the top guys at those positions. And yeah, that being said, 2 more teams today. This team comes in from Rand, and he's got 4 million MT, no money spent. So shout out to you. That's definitely a grind. He doesn't like to spend more than 50k on individual cards till in game, but like you said, we are really there today. Like today was the official beginning, I would say, of end game. Any suggestions welcome. Have no issue selling anyone. Then he says he'll have Dark Matter, Josh Giddey this weekend. So I look at this team and I really do like the way that it is set up. You got some really nice cards and you have some good free options as well. Like you said, you're going to get Josh Giddey. You have Vince Carter. A lot of these cards I would keep the same. A few of the things, there are a few things I would change up, especially with 4 million MT. I think you can afford to spend 1.5 mil or so, and you're still going to have a lot of MT left for future content drops. And also, if you have 4 million MT, clearly you don't have much of a problem making MT, even no money spent. So for me personally, what I'd be looking to do is keep Jermaine O'Neal, keep David Robinson, probably sell Patrick Ewing, probably sell Oscar Robertson, sell Dwayne Wade, keep Vince Carter and Dr. J. That can be your duo at the the shooting guard position. And then I think you make Thon Maker and Jonathan Isaac your small forward duo. So you keep those 2 guys at your small forward. Then at the power forward position, keep Jermaine. Like I said, keep D-Rob off the bench. And then you pick up a new point guard. Definitely would go Michael Jordan. I know you have 4 mil. You probably don't want to spend an insane amount like you're going to be spending on MJ, but he really is the best card in the game on current gen specifically. So I think you go MJ at the 1, and then you have Dr. J at the 2, John at the 3. You can go Jermaine at the 4, and then I would go Kareem at the 5 for me personally. Off the bench, you said you're going to get Giddey, so I think you go Josh Giddey, put him here. Vince Carter plays the backup 2, Thon Maker at the backup 3. At the backup 4, you know what? What I'm actually going to do, I think you move Jermaine to the backup 4 and you pick up Blake Griffin. In my opinion, Blake Griffin is the best power forward in the game besides Dirk Nowitzki. So I think you go get you go get Blake, put him at the 4, and then bring Jermaine off the bench. And then you have D-Rob at the backup 5. At that point, you're going to have, in all honesty, close to one of the best teams in the game. And you'll probably have spent close to 1.5 mil or so. And that, I mean, it's still going to leave you with a lot of MT for future content drops as well.
since JC gave you like kind of the, expensive spending 1.5 million MT, instead of just kind of saying what he said, I'm going to give you like a budget route or budget options you can go with. So for point guard, you have Giddey. You're going to get him over this weekend. I would start Giddey at point guard and then have Dwayne Wade off the bench. I like your two shooting guards of Vince Carter and Julius Erving. Small forward, I'm agree with JC though. Have Jonathan Isaac starting small forward and then Thon Maker off the bench. Backup power forwards, Jermaine O'Neal, Jack Sigma. If you sell Danny Ferry, you're only going to spend an extra maybe 10 to 20,000 MT on a Jack Sigma, and he's going to be 1,000% better. And then for Patrick Ewing, unless you love the card, me personally, I'm a bigger fan of Hakeem, but that might be just preference. If you like Patrick Ewing, then you can run him at the backup center. But me personally, I would sell Patrick Ewing and then pick up a guy like Hakeem. Like I said, if you want to go JC, those are obviously the better options to take. Those are the better cards. But just because you said you don't like to spend that much MT on individual cards, those are kind of my budget suggestions. So your lineup would look something like Giddey and Wade, Vincent Irving, Jonathan Isaac, Thon Maker, Jermaine O'Neal, Jack Sigma, David Robinson, and Hakeem. And honestly, you really don't spend that much MT at all on that lineup. So just want to give you a budget option, but those are my suggestions for your squad.
Before we go on to the last team, I just want to give my take. I think Patrick Ewing is a lot better than Hakeem. That's just my personal opinion. I know Evan's a massive Hakeem fan. I never liked the card, even when I got him, like when he came out, because I got him to lock in for Chris Mullin. I was just never a very big fan of the card. So for me personally, if you're going to go the budget route, do everything Evan said, but keep Ewing. That's my personal opinion. But last team today comes in from my boy Shaw. Obviously a God Squad. Evan, what are you thinking?
Yeah, for Shay's team, he's got a God Squad. He just can't figure what to do with the last four spots. He's got Ben Simmons, Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant, Bob Nedelecki, and Yao Ming. Probably the best team in the game, at least on current gen. You can make the argument for next gen as well, except maybe Luka Doncic over Michael Jordan. Off the bench, he's got Luka, he's got Larry Bird, he's got Jack Sigma, and he's got Dikembe Mutombo. So, I mean, pretty much a perfect squad except for the shooting guard position. The shooting guards I personally like, the best shooting guards in the game. I'm a really big fan of Paul George. Not sure if you play on current gen or if you play on next gen.
Shaw's on current gen. He's on current gen.
He's on current gen?
Yeah.
I think Paul George is still pretty good on current gen. Obviously, I'd recommend Cedric Maxwell, but I don't know if you want to lock in for the card or Chris Mullin. So I'm going to say go with a guy like Paul George. I do think he's super elite at the shooting guard position. Some other guys you could go with too is like a Julius Erving, but you probably want a better card than Julius Erving, so maybe a Giannis at the 2. I do like Larry Bird. I think he's super underrated, and he may even be the second best small forward in the game behind a guy like Kevin Durant. Backup power forward, I think Blake Griffin is better than Jack Sigma. Me personally, I just think he's the better power forward. And then for backup center, if you're trying to make like the best team in the game and make a God Squad, I think the second best center in the game is Kristaps Porzingis. So your bench would look something like Luka Doncic, Paul George, Larry Bird, Blake Griffin, and Kristaps Porzingis. And then obviously your starting lineup would stay the exact same. So those are my suggestions for your squad.
Okay. I'm going to disagree with Evan on every single thing he just said, except for the Blake Griffin. I'm going to disagree with his backup, the way he would do the rest of his bench. For me personally, I know Shaw's a streamer on Twitch, one of my boys. He plays on current gen. I think Blake is better than Bob on current gen. So for me personally, I would get Blake, like Evan said, but I start him at the 4 and bring Bob off the bench. Luka is arguably the second best point guard, or the best backup point guard with you having Ben and MJ in your starting lineup. On current gen, it's an argument between Luka and Levine, but Luka is totally fine to put at that spot. At the backup 2, for me personally, I'm going to name a guy that we haven't talked about it all this video, but I personally think is arguably the best shooting guard in the game besides Michael Jordan on current gen specifically, and that is Mr. Jimmy Butler. I think he's a card who goes very underrated. He's not maybe quite as good on next gen. On current gen though, he is elite. He's got the same base as Chris Mullin to his jumper. Solid movement, is an absolutely elite lockdown defender, can be your lock off your bench. So for me personally, that's the guy I'd go with at the backup shooting guard position. And then I would have Bob back at power forward because Blake is starting at the 4. I think Larry Bird is just fine. You keep him at the 3. You could upgrade him to Giannis if you wanted, but honestly, Larry and Giannis, while they may give you slightly different things, are probably on a very similar level as cards. And then at the backup center, it all depends on if you want to spend that MT, because Dikembe is definitely a very valid option. But for me personally, if you want to upgrade that backup center position, I know Evan said KP is his second favorite center. My second favorite center behind Yao is personally Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I just love what he brings you on the defensive end of the court, and I think his jumper is still very good. So I don't think he is lacking too much compared to KP in the shooting ability, and gives you more defense and rebounding. So for me personally, that's how I would change up your team. And yeah, at that point, I mean, obviously you're already looking at one of the best squads in the game. You do something like that, you really truly might have the best team possible in MyTEAM. But yeah, that is going to do it for this video. These are the 6 teams that we wanted to review in today's video. We'll probably do another video like this in the future, so be on the lookout for a video like this in the future. But also, if y'all do want to be involved in a future episode of I Build Your Teams, make sure you follow me on Twitter. Link is in the description below. Be on the lookout for a tweet about this series every single Friday night, and drop your team under that tweet for a chance to be involved in the future video. Again, want to give a huge shout out to my boy Evan for coming on and helping me out with this video. Like I said, I'll leave all of his links down in the description below, so make sure y'all go drop him a follow and a sub. And yeah, appreciate you coming on, Evan.
Yeah, man, just appreciate having me on. Hopefully we gave you guys some good suggestions, and make sure, like JC said, go sub to JC right now. Go drop him a sub. This man's on his YouTube grind, his Twitch grind. Make sure to go drop him a sub down below. He posts content every single day. But once again, I just want to give a thank you to JC for letting me come on his channel.
Yes, sir. Yeah, like I said, that's gonna do it for the video. If you did enjoy, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more 2K content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.
Peace.